Buenos días, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a una conversación más de liderazgo para la sostenibilidad. En esta ocasión tengo a un invitado muy especial, es Ingmar Rentzhog, y nos acompaña desde Estocolmo, en Suecia. Ingmar, thank you very much for accepting to be my guest today. Welcome. Good evening for you, good afternoon, and good morning for everybody who is connecting in the Americas, in Latin America, in the US, and Canada, where we have a lot of followers as well. Thank you. And well, just to remind you guys, please like this video and share it, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can have all the notifications for future conversations and future videos on sustainability. And the idea is to bring you ideas and tips and inspiration to help your organization become more sustainable, because a sustainable world, I truly believe, is possible for everybody if we put our hearts and minds to it. So Ingmar, who is Ingmar Rentzhog? Let me introduce you guys to this wonderful entrepreneur who's a mover and shaker of everything related to climate change and green entrepreneurship. Ingmar is the CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. The website is wedon'thavetime.org. And this is the world's largest social network for climate action. They also have an app, which we'll talk about, and it's really, really interesting. He was also mentioned, he was also called the official eco-warrior, according to The Sun, the UK newspaper. And France TV2 called him the new, or called him the Mark Zuckerberg, vert as in green. Ingmar is a serial entrepreneur with a background in the financial industry, and he is a member of Al Gore's Climate Reality and European Climate Policy Task Force. So Ingmar, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being my guest. And I'm sure we are going to benefit from this conversation, because there's a lot of green entrepreneurship, a lot of activism around climate change. And I would like to hear from you. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. It's great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure, welcome. So, how did you get interested in things related to climate change or sustainability?
I think it was, I've always had a connection with nature because I'm raised on a small farm in Sweden. So it was natural to see the food grow. My parents had this crazy idea to grow all the foods for the family, and they also had 7 children, and I'm the youngest one. So I always had a connection with nature, but I haven't been an environmentalist or anything like that. Instead, I started out as a more or less computer geek, as most kids in my age here in Sweden. And the reason why I started to engage in the climate and environment was mostly because when I became father myself, 8 years old, I started to look in the future with a longer time perspective, and I started to read a lot about the climate, and I understand that this was something that very few people were aware about, how severe the situation actually are, and that's where I got into this rabbit hole where you once have discovered the climate crisis, you can't get out of it. You need to handle that information. So I would say the start of my own journey within sustainability was very much when I became a father myself.
How old were you, may I ask? When you started reading about climate change?
It was 8 years ago, so I was a little bit over 40 years old.
Okay.
So it was not like I was a youth activist or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. But it's something that really touches the personal side, which I think for me, I relate to what you say, because even though I was born and raised in Mexico City, I had the I guess the opportunity to grow next to a farm, so to speak, not all the time, but because my parents lived in the my great grandparents lived in the Tequila region, which is north west from Mexico City. I got to visit them, and that proximity to the land made a difference, I think. And not all city kids have that
No.
luck, I would say.
It's a lot of people I have met when I started to engage in the climate that have similar connection with nature, upbringing on a farm or outside of a city or similar. And I think that's most modern people don't have this connection to the nature, and that is a really shame, because I think that if more people will get out in the nature, they will appreciate it a lot more.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I could go on, and we could probably have fika or many fikas around this topic, but I want to focus on you today and just get all of your insights on how you got started with We Don't Have Time, and yeah, like why did you, or how did you get started with We Don't Have Time? How did the idea came to be?
Actually, very much thanks to Donald Trump. When he won the US election, I realized something very important, and that is our world leaders, they will not act on the climate crisis. That is not just Donald Trump, but Donald Trump was actually the first leader that tell the truth, that he's not going to do anything about it, or too little. Other leaders pretend they do much about the climate, but they don't. I get this. I realized that we are on our own. We don't have a leadership in the world that act on this serious problem. So that's where I started. The same week when he won the US election in 2016, I started to figure out how I could contribute or try to do something for the climate. And I came up with this idea that what have created global change, because this is a global problem. So we need to change, and we need to do it on a global scale. What have achieved that previously is actually social networks. In only 10 to 15 years, they have changed the world, for better and for worse, but they have changed the world. So could we use the information technology for good? And that was the seed of starting We Don't Have Time. And I came up with the name, I just think, 1 or 2 days after I started to listen to his crazy victory speech on TV with a lot of signs about dig more coal, etc.
Yeah, it's unfortunately that happens a lot more around the world than we would like to. And I'm thinking Brazil, but also Mexico. Our current president is very much, in my opinion, a very personal opinion, it's like a Mexican version of Trump, which is quite, I mean, in a different way, but he's supporting a lot of the fossil fuel industry and stepping on the path of cleaner energy. It's not, yeah, it's antagonist, but it's very important for us, I would say, as individuals to get organized in a way like Greta Thunberg has organized herself and her peers and really millions of people around the world, and the way you are doing it through the app. And I think it's been wonderful to see the evolution of We Don't Have Time and all the engagement around the world. It's not it is not only Sweden, it is not only the Scandinavians that care about becoming more sustainable and use cleaner energy. It's a fact that it's affecting every single soul, every single living being, whether human or animal or plant. And so I since I've been dedicating so many years, more than 15 years to this topic, I'm very excited to see more and more people add their voices to what's going on and expressing they want to do something. What could you share with us about the results or the effects you've seen with the app, with We Don't Have Time?
What we have tried to achieve with our app is not to build another protest moment, because we have a lot of protest moment in the world, and I think that plays an important role. Our app, instead, we have actually looked more about how is people influencing leaders before, and it's sorry, I will say it's not often people at all. It's more or less lobbying organization. Companies are paying a lot of money to lobbying organization that spend their time with the leaders. They have lunch, they have meetings, they mail them, they call them. They are constantly having a dialogue with our leaders, and they try to influence them to do decisions that will gain them somewhere. Fossil fuel lobby has been incredibly successful here, but it's not a lot of other lobbying interests, and it's a whole industry for this. So what we have been doing on We Don't Have Time is actually to try to build a tool that gives the same power to anyone as a lobbyist. But instead of having a lot of money, we are using the people power. So if 100 people or 1,000 people agrees on an issue, that is power behind it when we reach out to the leader. So we could use people power instead of lobbying money and achieve the same thing. But what we must realize, in order to influence our world leaders and have them to change, we can't only tell them what we want them to do. We must also listen to them and have a dialogue, and have them to understand why it's important they do as we want. And lobbying organization has been incredible effective on this. So what we have built, the We Don't Have Time platform, is to achieve the same thing. We need the leader to listen on us. So when you create something on the We Don't Have Time platform, you don't just discuss it with like-minded people as on other social media. You're actually discussing it directly with those in power, and you include them in the conversation. So when the people agrees on something on a platform, the We Don't Have Time team reaches out and have the reception to answer. And actually, we have got answer from everything from the president of Brazil to Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, to a lot of other ministers and corporate leaders to engage in a climate dialogue, and that's super important. So I would say we are taking the power of lobbying to the people, and that's really needed, because our politicals, they are listening to those that they're spending time with, and today they're mostly spending time with their closest friends and their lobbying interest, and maybe their board of director members, etc., etc. We are opening this up and include every stakeholder in the process.
Wonderful. I think it's thank you so much for sharing this, because definitely I believe that activism has a place in our lives for many issues, social, environmental, etc. But definitely moving towards action from activism is I believe it's a change that I've been seeing happening more and more in the last couple of years. And I think it's what will what will make things actually happen. And also including those that are in those positions of decisions for public policy writing and implementing, those definitely that think different from us, but that have a stake on all of this, are important definitely to bring into the conversation. And to be honest, I usually avoid, or in the past, avoided talking to politicians and working with the public sector, because there's just such a big disconnect, I felt personally, from what they said and what they did, and I did not feel myself represented, really. But in the last couple of years, that I've found myself like facing a wall, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You're talking about engaging all of the stakeholders. You have to start talking to the public sector as well, because they have a big stake and could be a very important leverage to effecting change.
Yes, and I would say we should not forget to talk. With people in power today is often not countries that have the most power in the world. I mean, for instance, if you take Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, the company has over 2 billion users. That's more people than China have citizens. And so they have, in some areas, more power than all countries on this planet, because they influence what 2 billion people access to information are. So with people in power, we need to influence not just the political leadership, we also need to influence the corporate leadership.
Definitely.
And if you succeed with that, you will also succeed to influence the political leadership, because how the world operates today is that the business world is taking the direction, and the political world is actually doing what they want. So if you want to influence the political sector in the world, we must also influence the businesses that have the politicians taking the decision. Our political system today are so afraid of colliding with the business sector. So they are seldom doing that. And I don't think it should be that way, but that is the way it is. So in order to have political leadership move in the right direction, we need to have the corporate leadership move in the right direction. And that is something that is actually much easier to achieve, because, I mean, most countries, some countries have democracy, you have free election. Some countries doesn't have that, but most people are buying stuff from corporations, and every time you buy something from somewhere, you're actually using your vote. So the corporate world is something everyone could actually have a much great influence on, and the corporate world is also very they're very afraid of public opinion. They don't want you to think their business are bad, because that is really bad for business. So if you take the role in the climate movement, what We Don't Have Time is playing, I would say we are more of a diplomacy organization. We want the world to talk to each other. We want businesses to talk to people, people talk to businesses, leaders talk to political leaders, etc., etc. So we are like the diplomacy in the world, and we need the world to speed up change. But in order to have diplomacy to work, the more radical climate movement is also very needed, because if you don't have an army, no one will listen to your diplomacy. So we need everyone engaged in the climate movement. And if you want to go to the street and do protests, that is needed. If you want to use our platform and have your voice heard and give leaders ideas on how to improve their climate action, that is needed. If you're an investor that can invest in new solutions, that is needed. We need everyone on board, and everyone can do something in order to make this happen. And we are one thing in this puzzle, and we need everything in order to achieve fast change in the world.
Definitely. And I usually say in my videos, it doesn't matter how little you think you're doing, but that little thing will add up to all the thousands and maybe millions now of people that are caring about the environment and doing something that will have a positive impact in society as well. And actually, my bet was on the corporations, on the private sector, and that's why I've been working with the private sector. But like I said earlier, I realized that I couldn't leave out the public sector, or at least the conversation, if it's not my task to like affect change in public policy, I will definitely add to the conversation. And I am actually inviting, I had about a month ago, I had a guest who is from the private sector. I mean, sorry, from the government, works in the public sector. And this was quite interesting, very interesting, because he's also very interested in affecting change. And those conversations have to happen, definitely. And I was thinking, while you were explaining that your role is more of a diplomacy or diplomatic with we don't have time, I was thinking this is väldigt svensk, very Swedish, right?
Yeah, the first environmental board meeting was actually in Sweden in 1972. So it's maybe in the Swedish DNA, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I spent a year in Sweden studying sustainability, a graduate program, and I could definitely see that it's been something. It's a mindset that Swedish people have, that you don't actually have to explain it, because when you try to explain it or you ask people about it, they have a difficult time expressing it, because it's so ingrained in the culture. Caring for the environment. I'm not saying every Swede is like that, but most of the population I found, or a very important amount, or a very important percentage of the population, thinks in this way.
Somehow it's true that the general Swede thinks that we are really in the forefront in the environment, how we live sustainable, etc. But unfortunately, we're not a sustainable country at all. I mean, the carbon footprint for a Swedish citizen is very, very high. One of the highest in the world. Not as high as the US, but I think it's like top 10 or top 20 or something like that. So the self-image can also be a problem, I would say. Because we think we're better when we actually are. So it's both something that could be good, but it could also be a disadvantage to think that we're better than we are.
Hey, so interesting. There's a challenge. There's a challenge, but it's a great challenge, I would say. Yeah, definitely. I would say that not a single country can claim themselves or itself as sustainable or completely sustainable. We have never seen it, so we're still working towards it. But there are some that have better practices in place. And definitely the Northern Hemisphere countries have a much larger carbon footprint than compared to the rest of the world. But there's also, or that carries responsibility, I find. And a lot of people in those countries as well are taking that responsibility, like you are, for example.
Yeah, it's true. But, unfortunately, the ones that have realized the climate crisis truly has realized it. We are not many people. We're not many people in Sweden. We're not many people in Mexico. We're not many people in the world. But the magic is actually happening when those that have realized what is happening and acting on it, when those people connect with each other, no matter where they are in the world, that will be the critical mass that will have all the others to follow. So, I mean, it's unfortunately not many people that have really deeply acknowledged the climate crisis and what it means. But those that have, when they work together, that is an incredible power of moving more people along. But unfortunately, I will say, in a room of 1,000 people, I think it's only like 10 people that really realize how severe the climate crisis actually are and are acting on it. I mean, it's not enough to just be worried without doing anything. You need to be worried and do stuff. And unfortunately, we need more soldiers joining the fight there. And that is happening. That is going to happen. This is a snowball that more and more people are dragged along and realizing, and you can't go from be totally unaware to be very, very aware. It's a journey. You need to start somewhere, and that's so important to talk to those that are not aware at all. If you can move them a little bit further down the road of the climate crisis awareness, you will start the transition for them to actually change. So this is why it's so important. The most single climate action we can do is to get out there and influence others people. Super important. The little action is actually meaningless if you don't influence others to follow. So if you, for instance, if you live in the forest and you live with a carbon footprint that is really sustainable, but you meet new people and you talk to new people and no one will be influenced about your action, that is pointless.
That's right.
But if you live and if you talk to others and if you influence others to follow, that will have a huge effect. So it's super important to have others to follow. And in order to succeed with that, it's important for every one of us to get out of the comfort zone and be outspoken about this, even when it's very uncomfortable to do so, because most people don't want to talk about the climate crisis when they gather in a social meeting.
Right. And that's why this movement, the Al Gore's climate.
At home, sorry.
No, that's okay. We know you're the eco warrior.
One thing you could just show others about you care by wearing a green pin, and they will be curious, and that will drag people in. So that is actually a climate action to wear that.
Yeah.
You're better than me.
Say that again.
You're better than me.
No. I just remembered to wear it today. So, and talking about what Climate Reality has done, what Al Gore has done with this organization, I think it's also in the same line you were saying. Yeah, you're creating a snowball effect, and I like I said earlier, I can see a change from the last 15 years or from 15 years ago to today. I definitely see a huge change, like a lot of more. Many more people are sensitized to what's going on. Maybe they don't know exactly what to do. Maybe they are not committed to actually doing changing their habits, but they are aware. And I think that's already important per se. But also, just coming back to Climate Reality, I think the fact that more and more leaders are joining the movement for the Climate Reality organization by Al Gore, I think it's also very important. And this talks, these presentations that we give as Climate Reality leaders, they're free. We don't charge for those. There's still a lot of more percentage of people in the world don't know about it, still don't know about it. So there's a lot of work to be done. Like you said, it doesn't matter if you are doing great things, but if no one's listening, then how will we affect change? Now, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the approach that Al Gore uses, like using a lot of imagery of natural disasters and stuff? I respect a lot Al Gore, and I respect his work, and I am a Climate Reality leader, right? But in a way, I feel that showing these apocalyptic images doesn't actually help much. Maybe it helps some people react, but I've also seen some people kind of like step back or get numbed or just go like, well, why should we do more or anything if we're all doomed already?
That's. I mean, if we're doomed already, that is of course not what you want to achieve,
right?
Because that will only paralyze people. But I will say the climate science is the easy part. The hard part is the communication of it. And most climate scientists have totally failed how to communicate this problem. Because if we have succeeded with that, we will not be in a climate crisis right now. But I mean, scientists are not good at communicating, so I'm not surprised they are good at science, right? So we need other people, and Al Gore is one of those other people.
Right.
And his approach works on a lot of people, but not all people, and even those that is working on, it will only work for a short time. Because you can shake someone up, and they get emotional, and they feel like they're getting it, and next week they go on with their normal life, and they just forget. So in order to really shake people up, because you need to shake them up, I don't say that showing picture of natural disasters is the only way, but it is kind of an efficient way, combined with a lot of other ways. You need to have these messages on top of mind, constant level. So you need to remind the people about the climate crisis every single day. And that is what we have seen have happened here in the Corona crisis. Media has played a huge role of educating people about why it's so important to social distance, why we need to follow science. And if you look at the Corona crisis, I mean, media, they are showing this image of people dying, but people are not giving up action. It's the other way around. People are acting, and people are following the rules, mostly. I mean, if media haven't played the role of educating the people, no one will follow the government rules.
Right.
People will be rioting in the street.
Right.
But they aren't, because they are educated about that the regulation are more or less needed in order to solve the Corona crisis. So what I will say with this is that media needs to tell the Al Gore story every single day. But we can't only talk about the problem, because if we talk about a problem that is so big every single day, we'll have this risk of people just fading out and giving up, a little bit like you see if you have if media is showing pictures from a war going on in a distant land, a distant country. You will just turn off everything and you don't get affected of it. So in order for you to be engaged in this, you need to tell the sustainability story about the climate story about what is happening where you live. And unfortunately, that is not hard to do anymore, because the climate crisis is playing out in all countries in the world. And I think Al Gore is quite good of doing research and find climate catastrophes wherever you are in the world. You have this like 10,000 slide deck. You will always find something in there that affects your country. But if you still don't talk about what you can do about it, if you take the example of the Corona situation, you have this doomsday. People are dying in hospital. People are feeling the effect of the virus, etc. If you don't have the information about what you can do in order to handle this situation, people will give up. But in the Corona situation, you have the doom and gloom. People are dying. People are getting infected by a virus, etc., etc. But you also have what you need to do. You need to stay home. You need to work from home. You need to wash your hands. You need to get vaccinated, etc., etc. And people do stuff, and they can see on the news that other people are also doing it. So they have all of them to do the same. So the trick with the climate is that we need to get media attention of educating the people about the problem. But in the same time, we need media to tell the people that they can do something. And the best way of telling people on how they can do something is to show what other people are doing about it. So we need media to focus on the problem, but we also need media to focus on the solution. And if media are not doing this, we can't wait for them. We need to do it ourselves, and that's why I started the We Don't Have Time platform. I'm not waiting for world leaders to act on it. I'm not waiting on media to act on it. If they don't do it, let's start doing it. It's no excuse to wait for others. We need to just get in there and do the action. And that's why I think, protest is very, very good. Get out of the street and do protests. But we can't just demand change from others. If they don't do it, let's do their job. Instead of complaining about BBC not doing the media coverage, let's start a media station and do it. It's very hard, of course. Not everyone can do that. But in the world, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that actually could do it. And what I try to achieve is have all those entrepreneurs focus on the climate. And if they do, we will solve the climate crisis if everyone works on those solutions.
I was going to say that leads us to the entrepreneurship part, the green entrepreneurship. And even though there's a lot of will, there's a lot of challenges of like actually having that megaphone or that like huge loud voice that will impact and have an outreach, a bigger or much greater outreach. So what has been so far the most challenging part of being a green entrepreneur?
Money.
Definitely.
Because what capitalism is all about today is making as much money as possible. And in order to do that, it's often best. You will also succeed best if you do the things that are sabotaging the climate and the environment as most. It's super expensive to do it in a sustainable way, but it's super cheap to do it in an unsustainable way. So most businesses are doing it in an unsustainable way. And what we are digital companies, so we don't have a large carbon footprint in our organization. So our challenge is to actually talk to investors and have them to understand that the priority number one in our company is actually to do as much climate action as possible. And I firmly believe they're doing it, but it's not the money that is the core, that is our mission. It's the cause that is our mission. And I think capitalism have to change focus here. Capitalists have been about giving as much money back to your investors as possible. But what capitalism needs to be now, and it's actually also starting to happen, is that you need to contribute as much to the society for everyone that you are affected. So, and of course, you need to make money out of that, but the main priority should be the kind of value you're building for your society. That is what companies should be doing as their number one goal. And the shareholder is just one stakeholder in that. You have the employees, you have the society, the municipality where you're building the company, etc., etc. You need to show responsibility, and if you do that, they will give you so much back, so it will be much more profitable in the end.
So money has been
not in society yet, I would say. So we're still in this old capitalist where it's about making short-term profit that is the most profitable. And that is what we don't have time to try to change, because on our platform, everyone could give reviews to businesses. So those businesses that actually are doing climate action, they are getting advantage in front of those that are not doing it, so that you will actually get out of something if you do the right thing. You will get an advantage. So it will be more profitable to do the right thing and more expensive to do the wrong thing. Today, exact opposite. It's the exact opposite, I would say.
Yeah, it's in a way I feel that we're still going against the stream, but things are changing slowly, but they are changing. At least
things are changing very fast, but you don't really see it. Because, well, again, if you take the Corona crisis, we all know by now what exponential change is all about. When something is doubling and doubling and doubling, In the early days, you'd see a really, really slow growth.
Right.
But as soon as the exponential functionality is ticking up, you see a exponential growth.
Right.
And this is true for the coronavirus. That's why it's so important that you take action as soon and not later, because later is very expensive. This is the exact same with the climate. We see the effects of global warming today. That is kind of small, but in the future they will be huge. So action in the future will be so costly compared to how it is to act on it today. But that is the negative part of the exponential curve. If you take the positive part, the change, how people are changing behavior, how companies are actually changing their will to solve the climate crisis and do less damage, etc. You also have this exponential curve. And what we see today is the beginning of the exponential curve. And so many people, including me, of course, are so frustrated because we are not lowering the emission. We're not nearly near the Paris Agreement targets, etc., etc. What is happening is that the needle is moving in the right direction. And we are on an exponential path of change. So everything we do now is helping this exponential curve.
Yes.
And when that starts, things are happening so fast, so you don't even realize it. And we have some sectors where this actually are playing out right now. That I'm really laughing at the people in the industry because they are the ones that haven't realized it. I could take the car industry, for example.
Right.
You have all this car manufacturing that are pledging, like Volvo the other week, we're going to be 100% electric in 10 years from now. And another one, we're going to do it in 15 years, etc., etc. I mean, this is really laughable because what's happening in the car industry is that we have passed the tipping point of the exponential curve. So no one will buy an internal combustion engine 10 years from now because it's really simple. It will be much more cheaper to buy an electric car, and it will be a much better car to buy it. So who will buy an old, expensive car 10 years from now? I mean, we don't drive horses today. it's like in 10 years from now, in the early last century, we're not going to make horses anymore. I mean, it will be so much quicker.
Right.
An old phone today. When Apple launched iPhone, they killed Nokia. Who is using old cameras with films? Kodak, one of the world's largest camera companies, doesn't even exist today.
Right.
I mean, car makers that don't realize this exponential curve, they will get out of business, and this is going to happen so fast. But we need it to happen even faster in so many areas. But change is coming, either you like it or not. I would quote a famous person.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So what has been the most rewarding part of being an entrepreneur, a green entrepreneur?
I agree. I've been always an entrepreneur in my life. So the difference between being just an entrepreneur working for growing your company and making more money and being a green entrepreneur, growing your impact as the mission, I would say that gives me so much more joy and meaning in my life. And I mean, money doesn't mean anything. It's what you do that the meaningfulness is giving so much. So that is, I can really recommend everyone to find their job that gives meaning. And I seldom think it is money. Of course, it's important to have money if you don't have it. But money is very meaningless in a dying planet, I would say. So being a green entrepreneur is something that is, I'm very, very pleased that I am in the position where I'm doing something in this world right now, because to be in the path where the world is heading without playing a part, I could instead building something just to earn some money. I think that will be really depressing. I'm really glad that I switched my career and tried and have it to work for the climate. So I think I'm very thankful for that.
Wonderful. Thank
but
you.
I would also say that to work with the climate is also very depressing, because most news are actually very, I mean, the climate is not showing good progress. So it could also be a very, very large responsibility. So it taken me some years to actually unconnect with my job, because when I started at this, I had a really hard time to separate private life from my work, and that could be a little bit too intense. Never doing enough, because when you work with a climate issue, it's very, very easy to think that you need to always do more, because we do, but we also need to be sustainable in life, and you need also to think that others also can do it. You can't do everything yourself.
Definitely. I so much empathize. I have gone through the same, and every so often, it's not like I'm not there anymore. It can happen every now and then. So I think it's for me, it's been just finding that balance. And I actually talk to my clients and my students about like having this not work-life balance, but having personal sustainability. That would have to be your number one job. At least that's what I try to do for myself. If I have personal sustainability in my mind, in my heart, in my health, then I can have enough focus, enough space of mind to dedicate to the climate, to the environment, which, like you very well said, it's not showing a lot of good progress, but the opposite. It's going in the other direction. But just to wrap things up, Ingmar, one more question I have for you. As a Swede, what do you think of the role Greta Thunberg has? I mean, you've already mentioned about the importance of activism, but what do you feel as a Swede after seeing the role Greta Thunberg has played in the world, not just in Sweden?
I think a very big part of creating awareness and changing the mindset of how we see this problem. Before I started with on a time, people didn't talk about the climate as a crisis. And most people working with climate and the sustainability field that knew that the climate was as a crisis and severe, they were afraid of speaking out because scaring people away. Today, no one is afraid of speaking truth about climate, and I think Greta has played a huge part in changing that. How the world sees the climate crisis as a crisis, but we need to do so much more in order to actually have people to act on it, because just acknowledge a crisis without doing anything about it is just the first step. But to answer your question, I think Greta Thunberg has played a huge role of having people realize that we are in a crisis, and also the leadership in the world. They can't deny that anymore. They can deny doing anything about it, they still do, but they're not denying the crisis as itself. And this must be so. I am not envying Greta of what she has done here, because telling people all the time that they are in a crisis, that is a heavy burden. It's a heavy burden. And what we need to do now is actually, as grown-ups, we need to act on this. We can't have this on our kids to act on this. Our responsibility. And that is sometimes I'm really annoyed about this. People in the sustainability field, they're like, oh, but now it's the youth. They are going to save us, or let's invite the youth to the table. Yeah, it's of course great to invite the youth to the table, but it's our responsibility to act on this.
Right.
And the only thing the youth want us to do is exactly that, to act on this problem.
Right.
Because we can do it. We have no excuses, and we can't wait. We don't have time to wait.
We don't have time. And before I forget, let me, guys, just show you the app. Oh, wait. Let's see. I think I might just pull the website.
Yeah, please do.
So
and
let me.
To join the We Don't Have Time platform, sign up on wedon'thavetime.org. And what you can do here is to join other people that wants to solve the climate crisis wherever they are in the world. And you can have a dialogue directly with our leaders, corporate leaders, organizations, and political leaders. And if 100 people agrees on your climate review, you can give to our leaders, they will answer. Our team will reach out and have them to answer, and you will have a dialogue going on, and hopefully we will have a change out of that. So please join the We Don't Have Time, and you can watch us too as well.
That's right. So here's the website. If I go to the home page, it will show our broadcast, like our current conversation. But you see, let's see. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Well, this is the logo, and you'll find it in the App Store, and then you'll find it in Google Play, right? So you can vote for all the projects that you like. You can complain about some action government or a municipality or an organization, company is doing. You can send, they have their little icons, the heart, the light bulb.
Create post there and you will see it.
Yes. So like here, there are the icons, and you create a post like, I like what this company is doing, and I'll send a heart to their efforts. And like Ingmar said, you can actually have a conversation with the people doing in charge of making decisions. So please download it. It's for free. It's a free app. So engage in the conversation.
Yeah, and no as well. So we're a total ad-free network that is, and we operate on renewable energy. So right. You have, and we plant a tree for all new users. So if you download it and start an account, we will create a tree for you. Plant Wonderful. It, not create it. We just plant it.
That's wonderful.
Trees are creating themselves. Beautiful nature.
Right. Great, Ingmar. Well, I just have one last question for you. How can we move more decisively toward a more sustainable world?
We need to get more people on board, I will say. And in order to do that, we that have waking up about this problem, we need to use our time to actually use it to work on solutions, use it to have others get engaged, and do what you do now. You have a podcast, you talk about this, you spread awareness, but you don't need to have a podcast in order to do something. Everyone can do it. I mean, if everyone is speaking to 3 people and have them to really understand this problem, that's enough action in order to get things started. And you not just speak, do something what you like to do, that you have knowledge about, and do it more sustainable, and have other people think that it's a good thing to take after. So we don't only need to talk about all the problems when we talk to other people. We can also talk about, like, I installed solar panels, now I produce more energy than I consume. That is a great action. It's the stick and the carrot, but the main message, what I'm trying to say, is that get out there, get involved, and get other people involved in this.
Definitely.
Now we are very few people, but here again, it's a lot of science research on this, and when you have about more than 4% in a population that are really engaged in an issue, this whole group will change. So you only need 4% of the world's population to really engage in the climate issue, and that will change the majority. We're not there yet, but 4% is absolutely achievable. And I'm talking about you that is watching this, you can play a huge role in that, and you don't need to awaken hundreds of thousands of people. You just need to talk to your neighbors, your family, and people you actually know, and get out in the real world. Don't just be on the social media space.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Ingmar. And just to add to the comment about the youth, I think it's definitely important to have them on board. But I feel that I am part of this we also have the experience, we have the knowledge, and we have gone through many years of actually watching things happening and studying some changes. So I don't feel that I am an outlier or that I am out of the equation. I am very much part of the conversation and the solution. So like I've told many groups of youngsters, count on me, because I'm not out of this. So definitely something to work on across generations and across sectors.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. But I will also say youth have one role only youth can play in this, and it's super important. And that is, it's really hard for you and me to change a person's mind that is really someone with a total other political view about how the world works, etc. But children can change their parents' mind, no matter what their views are already. So children have a secret weapon, and that is needed in this, but it's only one weapon we need to use. We need so many other weapons as well in order to change the world.
Definitely. Well, Ingmar, thank you so much. Tack så million för att du kommer här. Thank you so much, and välkomna any other time. This is your space as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'm gonna end the broadcast, but just don't leave the studio yet.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone who connected. We're going to go offline, but we'll be back next week with another really interesting conversation. We'll have the executive director of the World Resources Institute, Mexico, and we'll talk about mobility and sustainable cities. So we'll see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, to like and share this video. Thank you. Bye-bye.